Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thank you for watching another Rams draft edition. This is the final one. The draft is less than 24 hours away. I'm excited. I can't think about anything else. I haven't been able to think about anything else. I want my life back. So please, NFL draft, happen already. Okay? I got family. I gotta take care of them. Gotta interact with them anyways. Enough about that. Thank you for watching. For all the new subscribers, thank you for jumping on board. For all the legacy subscribers, you guys have been awesome. Barotnik, keep it coming. And if you haven't subscribed, do so. I mean, this is the best Rams community on YouTube, and it's growing. So jump on board. You can also find me on Twitter at Real LA Rams Talk. Now, first things first, the draft is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Everything's Pacific time because we are in LA here. This is the LA Rams. Apologies to Rams fans all over the globe and the United States, but we're talking Pacific time. So it's going to be about 4 hours, 10 minutes pick. It's going to be crazy. The second night is Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific. The second and third rounds. The second round's going to be 7 minutes a pick. The third round's going to be 5 minutes a pick. And then on Saturday, just wake up and let it happen. It starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday, and the fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds are 5 minutes per pick, and the seventh round is 4 minutes a pick. It's a lightning round, literally. There you go. So that's the draft lowdown on the times and everything. But I'm sure you guys know this, right? Then I also have some news I want to share, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to do about halfway through, so stay tuned because I have a pretty cool announcement I'd like to share with everyone. So getting into this, I mean, I've talked about the first 3 rounds before, but now I'm talking about kind of everything plus my big board, because a lot of, the Rams really just have a lot of mid-round picks. They don't have a second rounder. They have 2/3 and then, so on and so forth. So I'm going to talk about start off by saying the Rams brought in, by position, the most amount of players to meet with for offensive line and for linebackers. They met with 20 players, offensive line players, 20 linebackers. They met with 19 defensive line players, 18 cornerbacks, 10 safeties, 9 running backs. So that's kind of the breakdown by position. I want to say 8 edge players. So when I look at that, that tells me, damn, 20 offensive linemen they met with. They're taking some offensive linemen. That's not really news to anyone, but it just reinforces that. Same with linebacker, though, is the one I haven't been paying too much attention to, but the Rams have been paying the most attention to them. So we're going to talk about the linebackers here, and then obviously the defensive line and so on and so forth. So starting off with the offensive line, there's a couple guys they have not met with, but are mocked to the Rams in several mocks. And I mean, I'm not saying the Rams wouldn't take one of them. I just think it's unusual. One is Garrett Bradbury. One is Chris Lindstrom. Both are projected first. Lindstrom potentially a second rounder, most likely a second rounder. I wouldn't have a problem if the Rams took them, but I just don't think that they will if they're there. One guy on the offensive line that's screaming to me if he's there when the Rams pick at 31 and they haven't traded is Dalton Risner out of Kansas State. He played at the Senior Bowl. They met with him like two times, maybe 3 times. Great career. He played center for a year in college, but also offensive tackle. So that's a lot of position flexibility, teams like that, especially the Rams. So Dalton Risner, then a couple other guys. Elshin Jenkins out of Mississippi State, Eric McCoy, Texas A&M. Those are center/guards, both projected second-round picks, maybe potential first-round picks. So Rams met with those guys as well. Nate Davis, NC Charlotte. He's a guard, kind of at a smaller school, but he's a hoss. And he looks pretty sturdy, and he would be a great value in the third round, which is where he's projected to go. So if they didn't get Risner or an offensive lineman in the first round, I could see them addressing that with one of the third round picks. And Nate Davis is actually kind of penciled in to be around at that time. Whereas those other guys, it'd take a lot for one of them to fall back to the third round. And then the last guy out of kind of like my top tier of guys is Ross Pierschenbacher out of Alabama. He's center. He's projected to be like a fifth or sixth rounder. So if they don't even address anyone in the third round and they want to get a true center and have Brian Allen kind of play center or be a backup center or guard, there you go. There's that. So yeah, that's my offensive line rankings right there. Or not rankings, but those are guys. So they met with 20. That's just like 7 guys potentially. And they didn't even meet with 2 of them. So those are like really 5 guys there that they could go with, because I will get some of these wrong for sure, because they can only draft, like 7 guys in this draft. But I will get a couple right. I guarantee it. So then the defensive line was the next group, or not the next group, but another group, 19 players they met with. I was splitting it up into defensive end and like defensive interior. So defensive end, all of these guys are like 3rd to 7th round picks. There's 3 of them. So the first guy I want to talk about is Kingsley Keke out of Texas A&M. He played in the Senior Bowl. They met with him, and he's projected to be a 3rd or 4th rounder, so they could potentially take him in the 3rd with one of their 3rd round picks or their 4th round pick, depending on how the draft is, the ebbs and flows are going. Then John Kaminsky, they met with him. He played at the Senior Bowl. He's a projected 5th round pick. When I say projected, I mean that's like go around, give or take a round almost, like who knows. But he was at the University of Charleston. He was the Mountain East, that's Division II, he's the Mountain East Defensive Player of the Year. And when I see things like that, and I see that they're at the Senior Bowl, and the Rams met with them, I think of guys like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, what did he set like the all-time receiving yards or receptions records for Division II? So, and he was at the Senior Bowl. So like, that's where my mind goes. That's where my MacBook goes too. Wake up. There we go. You gotta give it attention. Otherwise they just die on you. So John Kaminsky, keep an eye on John Kaminsky, 5th rounder, as a defensive end out of Charleston. And then in the 6th or 7th round, Jonathan Ledbetter out of Georgia. Also, so all 3 of these guys, Senior Bowl players. 3rd or 4th round for Kingsley Keke, 5th round for John Kaminsky, 6th or 7th round for Jonathan Ledbetter. So there you go. So what I want to talk to you about, my announcement is, what do you think about a Rams draft live stream tomorrow? Not the whole thing, because I still got to take care of business when I get home from work. But I'm thinking like 8 p.m. to the end of the draft. Because if the Rams hold their pick by pick 20 or so, then let's watch it together. Get the Twitterverse, get YouTube people, Rams people, get Reddit, Facebook group, bring them all together. Let's all jump in a live stream and talk about the draft as it's happening, as we're living through it, and just discuss it. Because most of our friends probably aren't Rams fans. Our wives or girlfriends don't care. Who are we going to talk to about it? Coworkers, they don't care. So that's what I want to talk about. Let me know what you think. Should we have some sort of a live stream here on YouTube? And comment in and weigh in, and I'll experience it together. I think it'd be a great idea. So let's do it. Anyways, moving on, defensive tackle. So there's a couple guys that everyone knows. Dexter Lawrence, you know Dexter Lawrence. Jerry Tillery, you know Jerry Tillery. Both guys are 1st rounders, potentially 2nd rounders if things get crazy. So I mean, if the Rams took Jerry Tillery or Dexter Lawrence or Dalton Reisner, I would be like, totally makes sense at 31. I have no problem with any one of those guys. I would prefer Tillery or Reisner, to be honest with you. But, hey, what can you do? So those 2 guys, Rams met with them. We all know them. But 2 guys that are like 3rd to 5th rounders are Rennell Wren and Colin Saunders. Rennell Wren out of Arizona State, Colin Saunders out of Western Illinois, Division II. They met with Saunders 3 times. So I really think that he's around maybe in the 3rd round or even the 4th. Boom, there goes Colin Saunders to the Rams. Both of those guys played at the Senior Bowl. So that's a little extra juice on that. So that's the defensive interior. Lawrence, Tillery in the first / early second is where they're targeted to go. Rennell Wren and Colin Saunders are scheduled to go anywhere in the 3rd to the 5th, probably 3rd to 4th rounds. And both of those guys play in the Senior Bowl, so maybe one of those guys. Now moving over to linebacker. This is a position group that I haven't really covered much. And outside of a handful of guys that are like supposed to go in the 1st or 2nd round, there's kind of a large gap in terms of where these guys would actually fall. So when I'm talking here, like every single one of these guys are projected to go in the 4th or 5th rounds, except for the last guy. So the first guy is David Long, West Virginia, is probably the most well-known prospect that has been linked to the Rams, and he was at the Senior Bowl, West Virginia, inside linebacker. He could be gone well before the 4th, but if he's there in the 4th and the Rams haven't taken a linebacker, I wouldn't be surprised to see David Long taken. 2 more inside linebackers. One is Tavon Coney, inside linebacker out of Notre Dame. He is also, so almost all these guys played in the Senior Bowl, which is crazy. So Tavon Coney did, David Long did. Tavon Coney, he was 3rd team All-American, had 123 tackles last year, 9.5 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. So he's kind of a beast, and if he's there in the 4th or 5th, boom, let's do it. Another guy, Bobby Okereke out of Stanford, inside linebacker, smart guy, Eagle Scout. Shout out to all the Eagle Scouts out there. So Bobby Okereke, Tavon Coney, David Long, Senior Bowl players, inside linebackers. The next guy, I'm not quite sure which inside or outside, is Jelani Tavi out of Hawaii. What's cool about Jelani Tavi, he's got a cool name, but he's from Inglewood. And I mean, how rad would that be? Guy from Inglewood plays in Inglewood. So he did not go to the Senior Bowl. So he's kind of a wild card. But the next 2 guys did. Terrell Hanks out of Texas A&M, outside linebacker. And then Sione Takitaki out of BYU, outside linebacker. Both of those guys were in the Senior Bowl. Takitaki could be anywhere 5th to 7th. Everyone else is like 4th to 5th range. So if the Rams haven't addressed linebacker, because their linebacker position is kind of thin. I mean, you have, especially inside, you have Micah Kaiser, Corey Littleton, I think Trayvon Young from last year, and then maybe Clay Matthews if they move him in on certain plays. So, you're really banking a lot on like you need to build depth there, bottom line. So that's why they brought in 20 linebackers. They met with 20 linebackers because they're taking a linebacker. And that list, Long, Coney, Okereke, Tavi, Hanks, Takitaki, one of those guys could very well be on the Rams. Now, let's move to cornerback, because it's no secret that the Rams will need some depth at cornerback. I don't think Sam Shields is back. I think Troy Hill might still be around. But you really have like Talib and NRC playing the slot, and then Peters. So Peters and Talib are free agents after this year. So you need to build some just A, depth in case of injuries, but B, potential starters for next year. So we all know the top-rated cornerbacks. I'm not talking about the top-rated cornerbacks. I'm talking about like the 2nd to 7th rounders. So I mentioned Justin Lane before out of Michigan State. I've mentioned David Long out of Michigan. So Justin Lane is a potential 2nd rounder. Sean Bunting out of Central Michigan is a potential 2nd to 3rd rounder. One guy I really like, Amani Oruwariye. Senior Bowl, really did well at the Senior Bowl out of Penn State. If he's there in the 3rd round, that would probably be a really good value. Very athletic, and he's a guy, you give him a year of coaching, and I think he'd really figure a lot of things out. He's not totally raw, but just could refine some things. He's really good in man coverage. So, I think that's also what Talib excels at, is man coverage. Marcus Peters, not so much. I also said Oruwariye is really good at diagnosing the double moves. Don't look, Marcus Peters, it's a double move. Then David Long out of Michigan, potential 3rd rounder. Iman Marshall, Senior Bowl player out of USC, he's projected to even convert into a safety, and I like safeties that can cover almost like a cornerback. So Iman Marshall will be a solid pick in the 4th to 5th rounds. And then you have Mark Fields out of Clemson, another Senior Bowl player. They met with him multiple times, and he's really good in man coverage. And so, when you play on Clemson, you're in the SEC, you play on USC in the Pac-12. I mean, these are big-time programs going against a lot of big-time receivers. So these guys have been tested. Mark Fields did really well in the national title game. So that kind of bumped his stock up on like the biggest stage. Like, that's one thing I also take into account is like, how do you actually play in games that matter? And if you come up big in college in a title game, that means that you kind of have the chops to make it in the NFL. He's fifth to sixth rounder. Then a sixth to seventh rounder guy is kind of off the radar is Keyshawn Nixon out of South Carolina. He was a JUCO transfer to South Carolina. They had 3 meetings with him. And then Blaise Brown out of Troy, they had 2 meetings with him. And those guys could either go undrafted and be undrafted free agents, or flyers that the Rams take in the later rounds if they still need depth at cornerback. Now, the last position group I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about edge because we know about Ja'Kai Polite and Jalen Ferguson and some other guys, O'Shane Jimenez, but Chase Winovich kind of talked out about those guys. So let's talk about running back. Now, I never really thought the Rams would address this, but because of Todd Gurley's knee, I don't really think John Kelly is a successor. I mean, I hate to say it, I think he's all right, but I never thought he was as good as Malcolm Brown. So they could be just trying to bolster some depth. So there's one guy that if he's there in the 3rd round, I could see the Rams taking Darrell Henderson out of Memphis. They met with him a couple of times. He's compared to Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman's pretty good. I mean, if he's your number 2 guy, if Tevin Coleman's your number 2 guy, you got a good backup. And then 3 guys that are like projected in the 5th or later. One of them is Devin Singletary from Florida Atlantic. One of them is Divine Ozigbo out of Nebraska. And then another guy is Bruce Anderson out of North Dakota State. All 3 of those guys they met with twice. And Bruce Anderson out of North Dakota State played at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, there you go. I'm kind of exhausted. I just want this to happen. But let me know what you think. Should I do a live stream tomorrow? Let me know. Let me know who you think the Rams should take. Should they trade back? I'm all for trading back. If the Rams can trade back into the 2nd round, if Daniel Jones and Drew Lock haven't been taken by the time the Rams select, boom, I think teams will be jumping up in the 1st round to take them. And let's trade back because so many guys that could be taken in the 2nd and early 3rd round are almost as good as some 1st round picks. So the Rams just need to get more guys in the first 2 or 3 rounds. And stockpile picks. So there you go. I'm really excited. I'm really drained. I feel like between this and Game of Thrones right now, my life is in utter chaos. So thanks for being there, Rams community. If you haven't subscribed, please do so here, somewhere in this area. If you want to watch some of my older Rams draft videos, when I say older, I mean like last week, check them out up here. I even have a playlist that even shows my projections from last year's draft. And like I said, spoiler alert, I got most of them right, actually. So enjoy. And I will see you tomorrow. Go Rams.